Coming up in today's podcast.
But I mean, in Bruce Hale's ministry around 2010, 2012, he's going on about the terrible damage of having to do with your neighbors and don't let your children play with the neighbors' kids. It's caused a huge amount of damage. And he says, you live 20 feet either side on the left and on the right from things that will take you completely out of the fellowship. I mean, he couldn't speak more strongly about the danger of letting your children play with the neighbor's kids.
So they live in fear. And so that is why they cannot have us in the photo book, because the next generation will be asking questions, well, who's that? Like, I don't know that person. Like, what happened to that person? And and they have this fear of them, if they know it, they might ask questions about it and they might be curious, and they can't have them having any knowledge of another life or another possibility.
Yeah, and I want to just respond to this, that my husband has been going back and forth to Maple Creek to do with a court case that was going on there. And in that, retrieved a confession from Alan Drever that was recorded and on video. And my brother had promised that he was going to help get me justice and help fight for me. And my husband was just there yesterday and had the door shut in his face, saying that they weren't free to talk to him. Here's the audio to that.
Welcome to the Get a Life podcast. Explore survivor stories. Uncover the hidden truths. Join our X-Call conversations. You matter, and so does your story.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Get a Life podcast. I'm Cheryl Hope, and today with me is Cassie Davies and Richard Marsh. Welcome, guys. We were all ex-members of the Exclusive Brethren, now known as the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. Over the past month or so, the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church has released a series of polished PR podcasts claiming that they are open, transparent, and compassionate, that no one is ever shut out, ignored, or abandoned. Today, we're putting their own words to the test. We'll be sharing insider messages, emails, and recordings that expose the truth behind those claims, including the audio of my husband Curtis having doors slammed in his face by people who publicly insist they don't do that. We also will be sharing comments from those of us who have left this cult. Okay, the first one here is PBCC podcast was in the title. Hi, Cheryl. I've noticed nobody has picked on Lloyd Grimshaw's statement that the Brethren Assemblies are autonomous individual congregations. If this is true, I'm sure it's not, then they're not aware of their own doctrine. They're giving up J&D's truth of the one body, the doctrine bitterly fought over and ending in the 1846-1848 Bethesda division when the Open Brethren came into being and the first major split occurred. The Open Brethren to this day really do have autonomous standalone churches. As for their support for political parties and government elections, it's clear they need all the backdoor channels they can get. As spectacular exposed on the ITV program, the COVID contracts follow the money, when they use an authorized VIP lane to gain lucrative government contracts. J&D's own words were, "We do not mix in politics. We are not of the world. We do not vote. We submit to the established authorities, whatever they may be, insofar as they command nothing expressly contrary to the will of Christ." I'm astounded at the lack of knowledge about their beginnings and foundations. Even the assertion that the Plymouth Brethren started in Plymouth about 200 years ago. This is completely incorrect. The first gathering was in Dublin, November 1827, with 4 men. These were J.G. Bellett, Edward Cronin, Francis Hutchison, and J.N.D. Kind regards.
I was shocked that they would claim that their churches are autonomous, because we all know exactly the detailed level of control that Bruce Hales has over every single congregation of the Brethren. I mean, we've all sat through meetings in which the smallest details were decided by, well, we've had a message from Sydney to say this, or a message from our beloved brother to say that. nothing happens in there without Bruce's say so. And if something happens that he doesn't like, he just makes a phone call through his lackeys and overrules. To claim that they're autonomous is, I mean, it's just a blatant lie that wouldn't deceive anyone who's ever had anything to do with these people.
If they're autonomous, how is it that it's uniform globally? Like each church does everything exactly the same globally. I mean, explain that to me.
And we're going to hear later a letter that was read out in meeting just this last caregiving meeting that they have where they take care of everything. And also an email that was sent out again that proves that they're not autonomous at all. So keep this email in your mind for later.
So this email is from an insider and was received on October the 21st. So it goes, "Hello, just finished watching your latest podcast. Very much enjoyed reading the emails. Quite reassuring to know that I'm far from the only one quietly seething away in here. The point made about those of us with families is the position I'm in currently. I have a spouse and dependent children whom I love dearly. Leaving them for me is not an option. I just keep hoping my spouse's eyes will open. No sign of that so far, sadly. So really, I just have to keep on hoping that eventually they, spouse, siblings, parents, etc., will come across your podcasts and finally start to see the other side. I wish there was a way I could open up your podcast with my spouse. Letterbox drop maybe? Oh, look what was in here today. Let's check it out, ha ha. It is so exhausting putting on the mask all the time. The PBCC podcast is absolutely astounding. The hypocrisy is unbelievable. The amount of times as a kid I was rebuked for playing with the neighbours' kids, well, I couldn't count the times. Couldn't swim for years because even lessons were a grey area for a while. Yet Gareth was playing rugby. Clamping down hard is happening right now. Friday night meetings have just been reintroduced. Absolutely devastating. It was the one night of the week we could get home from work, relax, be with our families. Now it's rush home, eat tea quickly and go to church. We wouldn't want to be too relaxed. We might start to think. And yet Charles speaks about COVID being a good time because he got more family time. The irony as they take away yet another moment with family. Anyway, I could go on. This is just an email of appreciation, really. Please keep going with what you do. Scream it out. Make everyone notice. Anonymous. I mean, that's pretty heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm. It's sad. Yeah.
And I can only imagine how many of them are in that situation, completely trapped. Like they stand to lose everything. They stand to lose their kids, their spouse, their finances. We all know how it goes, Richard. I'm sure you've been there. So
yeah, it's a terrible situation, and like we really feel for those in there who are trapped in that situation where their nearest and dearest can't see through the hypocrisy of it, and there's no happy ending for it, really. I mean, the only happy escape from that situation is really if the church either reforms or collapses. If it carries on like it is, it's just going to be heartbreak after heartbreak and thousands of relationships destroyed.
Yeah.
And we've talked on the other podcasts from the emails from the Insider series that we did about how frustrated everybody was with what Gareth was saying in those podcasts, right? I mean, they don't realize that they were the privileged ones. They really shot themselves in the foot so many times because they think that they're helping the public see who they are. But yet what they're revealing is literally what's going to cause this split and demise of their own church, because nobody got to do or have the life that they did unless you were in that top 1% of the PBCC.
It's like talking to the Kardashians about life as a normal person, like they have no clue.
And And I mean,
Absolutely ridiculous.
in Bruce Hale's ministry around 2010, 2012, he's going on about the terrible damage of having to do with your neighbors and don't let your children play with the neighbors' kids. It's caused a huge amount of damage. And he says, you live 20 feet either side on the left and on the right from things that will take you completely out of the fellowship. I mean, he couldn't speak more strongly about the danger of letting your children play with the neighbors' kids. And then here comes Gareth and the others. Oh, yes, most of my friends were worldly kids and we used to go and play rugby and go round to their house. I mean, the lies and the bullshit. I mean, damned if you do, damned if you don't. If that's what happened, you're complete hypocrites. If that's not what actually happened, you're complete liars. And I'm pretty sure you're both.
Yeah.
Our entire family was confined because my brother had supposedly stepped into a worldly person's home.
Wow.
So, I mean, I'm sure that was mum and dad's choice, you know?
Yeah.
Funny that. And I remember being absolutely terrified as a child to go, like, one of the girls from school was offering us pens, like these special pens with these little rainbow rings on them. And they said, oh, meet us after school and come to our house and we'll collect them. I was terrified to step inside their gate. I stood at the front gate and she said, oh, no, come around the back. We looked at each other like, oh, sorry, we can't do that. Like, it was terrifying.
Yeah. So this is an email from an insider, a current member of the PBCC we received on October the 28th. Dear Get a Life podcast team and all PBCC insider listeners, I know there are a lot. I'm writing as someone still inside the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. I've listened to the PBCC podcast episodes with the Hales brothers, and honestly, I feel sick. Hearing them speak like they represent our community makes me feel invisible, like the real lives of those of us living under their system doesn't matter. I think they have mentioned that we may hear from some others in coming episodes, but these will be hand-picked and very edited. The Hales talk about how nice their upbringing was, but they have no idea what it feels like for the rest of us, seeing how our parents trembled if a certain phone number came up on the incoming caller ID, never letting us do certain things because of the fear they had. The Hales speak of how they were raised with privileges most of us could never dream of: travel, social freedom, friends outside of the community, sports and other experiences outside the walls, while we were told these very things were evil. And now they sit there acting like we've all shared the same happy upbringing. It's hypocrisy on display. The reality is that so many of us are deeply unhappy, but saying that out loud inside the PBCC is dangerous. The minute you speak up, you're labeled as mentally unstable, or bitter, or worldly. If you show sadness, it's because you need a change of antidepressants, or you've grown cold. They never stop to think that maybe people are hurting because the environment is suffocating. Instead of listening, they preach about it in church and in a social gathering, those pointed messages about murmuring spirits and those turning away. Everyone knows who it's aimed at. It's public shaming dressed up as ministry.
That's a good one.
And when a family reaches the point where they want to leave, that's when the real cruelty begins. The children get pulled aside, made to feel special, showered with attention and love, all to drive a wedge between them and their parents. They call it care, but it's manipulation. They want to keep control, even if it means tearing families apart. The obsession with money runs through everything. When someone shows signs of unhappiness, the first question isn't why, it's how can we help them to make more money in their job? Or maybe they need more success in business. Maybe they're struggling financially, because to them, financial blessing equals spiritual health. The Hales boys bragged about having their houses paid off by the time they are 40, but no one talks about emotional health. No one talks about freedom or fear, or the loneliness of living under constant judgment. And still, even when it's obvious that so many are struggling, they won't let us go. If we don't like the Hales regime and they don't like us talking against it, why make it so hard to leave? Why punish people for wanting a more simple life, choice, and peace? Why destroy the families' reputations and livelihoods just because they want to live honestly? They use our family, parents, and people they think are close to us against us. The Hales Brothers podcast is polished, confident, and false. It's a PR exercise, not the truth. The truth is that there are hundreds, maybe thousands of people inside these walls, silently breaking, trapped between love for their families and the unbearable weight of control. Thanks for giving those voices a chance to be heard. The ones who can't speak publicly yet. The ones who are told they are crazy when really they're just human and desperate to breathe. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being willing to tell the stories the Hales would rather stay buried, with honesty.
Oh, that one's just heart-wrenching.
I just want to cry.
I know. It just makes you want to go and pick up like a bus and go rescue them all.
Oh, it's horrendous. And it's the gaslighting coming through from these podcasts that is just breaking people. Like they might have been awake a little bit, but the gaslighting and the psychological damage that is being done with the Hales boys just lying, blue-face lying in their podcast is just breaking people. Like it's so damaging and dangerous.
Because everything that this insider is saying, they've all said in there that they don't do any of this. That everybody has choice. Everything's left up to every family. That's not true. It's so not true.
So what happens to a person when they do leave the church, Dean?
Yeah, we don't cut them off. It comes down to their individual families if they wish to stay in contact with them. And they're free to reach out if they get in a difficult position or they need some support or some help. They can absolutely reach out for support.
What does it mean to be confined or shut up, Gareth?
It takes you a fair process to actually get confined or shut up, Lloyd. It means you just keep going back to something wrong that's not in accordance with our way of life and our values. But normally people get many chances. But finally, if it comes to the point where they just want to continue it, then we confine them. It doesn't mean we confine them to a room. It just means they don't actually go out to the meetings. But there's a lot of support, a lot of care, a lot of help, and a lot of support people come around to try to help them. Probably 99% of people come from a confined or shut up position back into the church or the fellowship. And then, the 1% that decide they don't want our way of life, then they leave. But we don't shut them out. We don't ignore them. We offer ongoing support and help.
So what happens when someone is finally excommunicated?
It just means they no longer come to our churches or our meeting gatherings. The family as such don't shut them off or ignore them or treat them badly or look down on them. Obviously we keep to the truth of separation so that we wouldn't eat or drink with them or socialise, but we'd be always there to lend a helping hand if.
And I just have to pause this and say that it's only probably 1% of the people that are confined that actually get the help and care that they need. This is an absolute outright lie from every single one of these mouths right now.
Ever a trouble arose.
So can they ever come back to the church, Greg?
Yeah, absolutely. And many have, and we will welcome them back if...
I mean, the thing that really strikes me is that all this publicity, which really stemmed from the election interference ultimately, is kind of forced the Haleses to come out in public. And then they've got this kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. They can sit there on the podcast and lie their faces off to try and convince the Australian public that they're normal people. But of course, all the insiders, the current members, watch this and they know that it's all lies. So they may have improved their perceived position with the public by doing this. But for current members, any current members who have a shred of common sense or honesty, this is devastating because, their idol has feet of clay. I mean, anyone, surely any member of any Christian church knows that lying is a sin. You can't just lie about your situation. I mean, I came across a quote of Bruce Hales very recently. I'll send this to you, Cheryl, so you can put it up, in which Bruce Hales said he was absolutely horrified and devastated to find that people inside would tell lies to cover up their position. You know, he's talking about people who've maybe in the brethren who are accused of some sin and they lie to try and get out of it. And Bruce says he's horrified that people would lie to cover up their position. And yet this is exactly what he's doing. This is what the Haleses are doing, and everyone knows it. They're lying to cover up their position. And they're ashamed of their own religion. They're ashamed of their own version of Christianity. I mean, for example, all the whole thing about, oh, they really, you know, sisters are greatly valued and they can run businesses and they've got this important place in the community. Why not just be honest about it? They go by the scripture that says they do not suffer a woman to have authority. Why not just be honest about it and say, yes, we go by this scripture. Okay, we realize that this isn't the modern understanding. We realize this may be unpopular, but we're going by this scripture in the Bible. Why not be honest about what your actual policy is instead of confabulating this whole network of lies to try and cover up? It's because you're ashamed of what you really believe in. Why not just be honest and face the consequences?
Yeah, and drag out literally the only example, the one and only example of a girl that was able to, only circumstantially, by the way, it was only because of the circumstances and her business model suited them and served them. Like, let's talk about the fact that the business model served them and served the purpose for them at the time. And that's pretty much the only reason she would have been allowed to go ahead with it.
Yeah.
And let's drag out that one example in the entire population of the PBCC and make it look like it's common, make it look like it's normal, make it look like that's just given, and troll her out in front of, like, it's appalling, even them trolling her out in front of the public.
It's
and
so
making a liar.
misogynistic that what they did. Yeah, they don't realize their misogyny. Yeah.
Yeah, and making an example of her and making a liar of her in front of the general public, it's just so offensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? When you sit back and look at this as a big picture, it really is an easy fix. And I know we've said this before, but it just gets louder and louder and louder. Instead of lying, like, let's just stop. Like, just stop and think, okay, let's just tell the truth here. Let's just tell the truth here. Yeah, they can't.
They can't though, Cheryl, because they'll lose their control. If they were to tell the truth, they lose control. So the truth is not an option for them. And that's just the hypocrisy of it all, really.
It's because it comes down to money. It's coming down to money. And in order to keep their money flowing in, it's got to be such a closed community. But, you know, because they're doing it they're doing it not for the right reasons, which is why they have to hide it. But if they just were true Christians and literally were all about care and compassion, they would just fix this and it wouldn't matter.
There wouldn't be the risk of people leaving, would there?
Exactly.
People would be happy.
It's all about the charitable status ultimately. I mean, that's what they're terrified of, that if they admit to the misogyny and the homophobia and all the rest of it, they're afraid they'll lose their charitable status. Now, if you were true believers in all that stuff, you know, if you weren't ashamed of your religion, you would state it as it is because you believe that's God's truth, and you would just take the consequences. I mean, look at all the Christians that were martyred and actually literally burned alive just for standing by the principles they believed in. They didn't just stand up and lie and say, you know, just deny what they actually believe. They just took the consequences. If you guys were real about your religion, if you actually believed it, you would just state what you believe and accept the consequences. But you're not real. You're not genuine. The whole thing's fake. And so you lie to retain your little financial advantages, to maintain your way of life, as you put it. Since when, please tell me, since when has Christianity ever been about maintaining your way of life. You're basically a glorified country club. You're not a religion at all.
Well, it's pretty telling, isn't it? When they've released five episodes now, and I can count on one hand how many times they've referred to God or Christ or Jesus. It's pretty obvious that there's no Christianity involved. This is purely commercial and PR. This has nothing to do with religion.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No. This next one up here is the title is Letter from an Insider. Hello, Bruce, Gareth, Dean, Greg, and Charles. I have included you all in this greeting because each of you is backing up and supporting what's happening. You know the truth, and that makes you all culpable. You all know me, although I know it makes no difference to you whether you know someone or not. We are all just numbers to you. This whole idea that our brother knows everybody and he knows what you're thinking, he doesn't. And those he does know, he doesn't care about unless they have enough money to make them worth his notice. The day I heard the language and tone Bruce used in a voice message to his nephew, the last lingering belief he was a man of God crumbled completely. I've spent the last 5 years slowly undoing the damage caused by growing up in the PBCC. I've spent the first few decades of my life living exactly as I was supposed to, doing everything expected of me, in my marriage, at the school, in the school shop, and in how I brought up my children. The emptier I felt, the harder I worked. The more people I helped, the more breaks and teas I hosted, the less I slept. It only got worse. Charles, you said it was awful what the journalist said about the women of the PBCC, and that you hoped the women would speak up. Well, here I am. And I'm learning there are more and more who feel the same way I do. I'm not the wrong one, as I used to tell myself. I didn't need to be adjusted. I just needed to realize I'd never had a real choice in my life and start comparing the places where I was valued and where I wasn't, where I was heard and where I was silenced, where I was respected and where I was dismissed, where my mind and voice mattered and where they didn't. The lies you spoke on the podcast are worse than the choices we were denied. To say that women could choose to work or not to work, that's heartbreaking to hear. It's not true, and you know it's not true. Half-truths are even worse than lies. It's well known that a woman could maybe work if it was in her husband's business, or possibly another brethren business, if it was needed to meet righteousness. That only created more division between the haves and the have-nots. Dean, if I come forward to the podcast like you say, you truly hope, will you allow me to answer honestly from my heart without editing? Gareth, you said women can keep their jobs after marriage. Did you forget that we only ever got jobs within brethren companies with no training and no room for advancement? Can we go and get an education, take up paid positions in hospitals and law firms? Can we open restaurants or fly planes? If that's the case, none of us got the memo. Yes, the gallery at Ermington has brothers sitting behind the sisters below them. But if there are also sisters in the gallery, Charles, you know they sit behind the brothers there too. My kids are grown up now and don't go in and out of the meeting. Never did, actually. But I'm not allowed to sit down the front. Greg, the only difference between your marriage vows and Gareth's was that after being committed to uphold scriptural principles, yours added, including the ministry of these great leaders with which I am in complete agreement. Brethren don't know the difference between a misogynistic culture and an inclusive one. And sadly, it's not even their fault. They've never been taught. Even worse, I hear women defending the same misogyny. They don't even realize what true inclusion is. The bullying culture is horrific from children to adults. The children mirror what their parents say and feel about other members. The priests won't help. We were told to be resilient and ignore it. Yet you couldn't find a more litigious group when they feel the media or an opposer targets them. Wouldn't the same principle apply both ways, top and bottom? Bruce, if you want this type of hierarchy, you can keep it. The peasants are leaving. I'm not going back to weekly breaks, visiting, or hosting. I'm done. You'll never want to drop separation. I won't say you never will, because who knows? We've gone from borrowing our neighbors' fax to having laptops and phones. But you'll never want to drop it, because that's the only way you can hold on to any control. We were told our whole lives how wicked, evil, dirty, and inferior worldlies were. But I found people outside I trust with far more of my life than my local brethren. At least they tell the truth. Separation is dangerous and divisive. As children, we were told to suffer reproach for the testimony. But the only reproach we suffer is the one we bring on ourselves. The things we're attacked for in the media aren't biblical. Separation itself goes against what Christ wants us to do on earth. If Jesus visited Sydney tomorrow, would he be at the precinct, Ermington, OSG, Eastwood, or Epping? Or would he be with the poor, the suffering, the homeless? Would he be feeding signature burgers to runners at a charity event? Or in the hospital holding sick children, encouraging the doctors and nurses caring for them? You only just heard from management that Campus & Co was closing? Ha ha ha. It was a financial decision? Ha 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 ha. The shop was a farce and a front from the start. The women picked it up and ran with it. They worked hard and worked well. It was entirely volunteer run, and we sold at higher prices than other supermarkets. So how did it not make money? We saw the figures. Where did the money go? It certainly didn't go towards reducing our school fees as we were promised. Maybe you're wondering why voices like mine are speaking up. It's the lies, the half-truths, the telling part truths to hide the whole truths we all know, the lack of authenticity that runs from the top all the way down. It goes against everything we believe in, and it's breaking the trust of ordinary people. As an aside, thank you, Get a Life Podcast, for making this information accessible to all. We trust you. You've shown us that there are people everywhere who have suffered and experienced the same things. We are no longer alone if we're willing to open our minds. I didn't intend to see the things I've seen. God showed me, and he's still showing me what he wants me to learn. I've reduced what I donate to the Sunday collection. Instead, I'm giving it to the Get a Life GoFundMe. Wow. This letter, to me, was the letter of all letters of really stating line by line what they are going through in there and how they think.
It's putting, like, I mean, it's putting it right back at them, because they invited the women to speak. They said they hope that women will come forward. Well, this is the only safe way for them to come forward realistically, because, like, anonymously and through us, because if they were to say any of this, they would find themselves very quickly under discipline.
Yeah.
One thing that really hit me about this was the comment about the school fees. It took me right back to 2016 when Bruce Hales said, we've got 4 more years to make money. 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, I think it was. And then, we'll have so much money saved up, we'll all get out of business and we'll just kind of cruise until the rapture, free from the world. 4 more years to make money. That was in 2016 or 2015, he said that. And here we are in 2025. Where's the cruising till the rapture? Where's the getting away from the world? They're just building their businesses bigger and bigger. And let me tell you why the Hales boys are so financially successful. Where does the money come from? It comes from the brethren. Do you remember being promised that if we invested $1 billion in the Vision Foundation, it would generate enough money that we wouldn't have to pay school fees anymore? Do you remember that? What was that, about 5 years ago? After the 4 years left to make money had gone, suddenly Bruce wants $1 billion for the Vision Foundation, because with the Vision Foundation generating a massive return on investment and Campus & Co. bringing all this money in, you wouldn't have to pay school fees anymore. All the schooling's going to be free, brethren. Do you remember that? And what's happened since then? Every year the school fees have gone up and up and up. They've probably doubled since then. And what are the returns on the Vision Foundation? The returns on the Vision Foundation are actually lower than inflation. These clowns that you gave your money to so willingly have actually managed to lose money on $1 billion investment. Where's the return from the Vision Foundation? Well, I tell you where it is. It's all invested in high-end Sydney real estate because Gareth and Greg and Charles and Dean have this pressing need to be able to entertain up to 50 people for special meetings to benefit the brethren, as they explained on their podcast. What they didn't explain is why they needed to have about 7 houses each for that purpose. So if you're sitting in there, current members, just keep your money where it needs to be, right there in your bank account. The PBCC, entirely under the closed control of the Hales boys, is sitting on $1.2 billion of your money. It's just sitting there. They're just feeding off it. They don't need another penny. They don't need any more school fees. Next time the school fees come round, tell them you'll pay the school fees as soon as you get an honest accounting for what happened to the $1 billion that went into the Vision Foundation.
How could they possibly be having to still pay school fees when they're triple dipping? They've got the government paying them the highest levels of subsidy on the school fees because of the low level, the fact that their parents don't have higher education. They get the highest value, the highest subsidies that any private school gets. And so then the parents are putting in, the government's putting in, and then they've been gathering this money for years in view of them not having to pay school fees. How is it possible that you're still having to pay school fees and possibly higher school fees than a lot of normal public school, private schools?
Yeah.
Well, ask yourself the question.
I mean, Bruce Hales has been he was always the Einstein of accounting. He was this incredible genius at anything to do with accounting. I mean, who better to trust your money with than this absolute whiz kid of financial genius? And then what we see in the last couple of years is Bruce Hales's signature boutique accounting practice, UBT Accounting, which we're reminded is Bruce Hales's own business, suddenly has to quietly shut up shop and disappear in Australia. And so does UBT Accounting New Zealand. Because Phil McNaughton and Dean Hales, in their genius, strangely forgot to pass on some vital information to the government about how much money they were squirreling away. But these are the guys that you, current members, are entrusting your money with. So it's hardly surprising that the school fees keep going up and up, because these clowns are just putting your money into their own pockets. The Vision Fund and Vision Invest takes your money and it invests it into Hale's own businesses. That's why they're successful financially, because they've got a golden tap. Anytime any of their businesses needs money, you provide it. You current members just pour your money into the Hales' businesses and you never see a penny back. The return to the investors is less than inflation.
But let's talk about the fact that when somebody else does have a successful business, they go and tap them on the shoulder and suddenly they're part of that business too. And I mean, that doesn't happen in the real world. That only happens because they've got a captive audience. They've got a captive group of people that they can coerce. And if they don't comply, then they get booted. And
terrible
the risk
things happen.
Exactly. Terrible things happen. Ask yourself, why is it that you're so afraid of them that you just comply when they make an order? You just comply. Why are so many people just going along with these random orders and handing parts of their business over to the Hales brothers? Like, it makes no sense. Like, how have they got their fingers in every pie globally suddenly? It's because they've got a captive audience and they say something, you jump. And if you don't, you lose everything.
It's a protection racket. It's like the mafia who go down every street. They walk into every restaurant once a month and they take their protection money. There's no coercion, of course. The people just freely hand it over.
Oh,
But
they're
if you
choosing.
don't pay your protection money, then hey, your front window's smashed in, your house is set on fire, and your kids are stabbed.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's a choice, but that's a
Yeah.
choice. Yeah, sure.
How do you want to do this?
Yeah. Shall we break your legs first?
You can choose what body part you lose.
Yeah.
This is another insider one, received again very recently. I think the facts were swept under the table in this one. You need to ask yourselves, if Jesus were sitting there at that table, could you still say these things? Or have you perhaps lost that fear of God? If your nose turned green every time you lied, how would you all be looking right now? Sorry, that's funny. There's so much that could be said, but the bottom line here is the lying. It's constant and it's deeply disrespectful to us, the members of the PBCC. Who do you really think you're addressing? Us, trying to gaslight us, or the outsiders, trying to convince them? Can people who leave reach out for anything other than help or support? Are they truly allowed any kind of family interaction? You say families make their own choices, but we know, and the families know, and you know, that if they allowed contact with somebody who left, they risk their own position and their relationships with the rest of the family. I have a question about the divorce rate. You quote a very low percentage of divorces within the PBCC. Does that include those who are living separately but not divorced? Does it include those who would divorce if they actually had the freedom to choose? And about the cutout photos in family albums, you say that's the family's decision. But tell me this, if a family chooses not to have their photo retaken, will you allow the original photo with the name captions intact to remain, or will you take it down altogether? Please, please, please stop saying the church doesn't own businesses. The truth is, the church is the school shop, is UBT, is RRT, is the Brethren businesses. There's no separation, except for underhand legal reasons. Stop insulting our intelligence. The podcast sounds lovely, a great way to live. But let's be honest, it's not unique. Everything you said you value about life in the PBCC, I've also seen out here in my small foray into the world. Well, everything except the principle of separation. And that, I suppose, is the point. Because without that, you'd have nothing left that makes you different at all.
Yeah, that divorce rate too. That when I listened to that, that was astonishing because they are not, there is no way it is 0.01% or whatever it was that he said in there. You know, like there's, I think that was the same, they were giving facts out with how many people had left in Sydney. Again, they are literally doing half truths because you know how many people are separated. I know I'm talking to families that are separated in there right now and Bruce is making them go back together. There's like, they do not give the choice that they are saying they give in their podcasts. It is a downright lie, which is what all these insiders are so pissed off about.
But divorce is not a choice that they can make, Cheryl, because one person has to leave. Like if there's a family and the husband or the wife wanted a divorce, one person has to leave.
And they lose the children.
And they lose their children, and they lose their entire family, and they lose their entire community. So that's not a choice. You consider like there would be so many people that are in unhappy marriages that don't have a choice because the consequence of a divorce are so severe that they literally cannot choose it.
And I mean, in particular, I think of the wives of those bloated, alcoholic, beer-bellied husbands who are stuck with this, you know, in this vile situation where they have to live with this this alcoholic who has no intention of getting any help for his condition because it's considered to be more or less a test of fellowship to continuously guzzle Scotch whiskey.
Yeah.
You know, how many of them would like run for a divorce in a moment if they believed they could leave that fat troll and take their kids with them, but they can't.
But not only that, Richard, like if they were being divorced and being a widow to the truth is not a nice life either. And there is no choice to get another partner. You don't have that choice. If you divorce, you are single for the rest of your life. Yeah. Like there's only a handful of cases where and that only very recently where a divorced person has been able to remarry. For years, we have known that if you are a widow for the truth, you are a widow for the truth for life. You do not remarry. There is not another option for you. So it's one person has to leave, which is absolutely devastating. They lose everything. They lose their community. They lose their family. They lose their kids. They lose their whole entire identity. So it's absolutely devastating for that person. And then it's devastating for the person that stays because they are now single for the rest of their life, solo parenting for the rest of their life with very, like, it's, divorce rates. You want to talk about divorce rates? You really want to go there? Like, seriously?
And you know what? There is one example in there of somebody who's divorced and they stayed in there. And watch them. I guarantee they'll use that couple on a podcast because it's unheard of, right? There's just one rare case that's happened in there. That is it. And
well, if it's the one I'm thinking of, it was it was where the husband was brutally abusing. Yeah. And in fact, I know the person brutally abusing them, brutally, like, and it should have gone to jail, but was protected by the brethren. Yeah. So
maybe that was the quid pro quo, that they maybe allowed it because otherwise one or other of them was threatening to go to the police, and that might have damaged the testimony. Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head there.
But back when the brethren were fighting for their charitable status in the UK, they put out this great statistic that there wasn't a single member of the PBCC in jail anywhere in the globe. Well, the reason for that is very simple, is that if you're put into jail, you're automatically withdrawn from, right? I mean, there was that case in, a well-known case in the UK, the Story guy, who was, his drunk driving accident, he was given a prison sentence. So for the duration of his prison sentence, the guy's withdrawn from, and, it was 2 or 3 years. And then when he got out again, they kindly restored him. So, of course, by definition, there's no members of the PBCC in jail. But it's a false
isn't that
statistic.
The case? Yeah, isn't that the case also here in Australia with that poor fella, I shouldn't say poor fella, but he had a terrible car accident and killed his brother and cousin. And now,
that's right.
Yeah, and he's withdrawn from. So he's technically no longer a member. Yeah. So we can spout statistics and say that none of our members are incarcerated.
Yeah.
Because you quickly dismember them or ex-member them.
Dismember's a good word, isn't it? I like that.
Exactly, dismember them as soon as if they get a jail term. Like,
yeah. And I just want to really quick touch on the cutout, the photos and the photos in that photo album that we're talking about. It's the family's decision. Like, could you imagine?
Yeah.
I think this was one of the most funniest things in that podcast. I think my jaw dropped to the floor when they were saying what they were saying, because could you imagine, are all of our pictures still in there? Right? Yeah. Oh, we'll just like Photoshop Cheryl in here. We'll Photoshop Richard Marsh here. Photoshop Cassie Davies here. Like, are you kidding?
Worse than that. It's worse than that. They delete you from the family. Yes. Like, you are deleted from the family. Like, if you got married, you're still noted. Notes in there who you married and where where you've gone. But if you are no longer a member, you are eliminated. You're disappeared.
Do you know what I challenge them to do? This is what I think they should do if they want to rectify that, is put our names back in the bottom. We don't have to have our picture in there. Just put our names at the bottom. You can put a poser beside mine. I wear that proudly. And that's all you have to do.
Or put even apostate. Like
apostate.
You can call me apostate. You can call me
whatever.
Poser. I don't
but
mind.
Put our names down there. That's how. And you're totally welcome to have fun with this and put a poser and apostate beside our names.
Just admit that we actually exist, please.
Yeah.
No, because they can't, and the reason is for fear of the next generation being aware of us. Yeah. And I know this for a fact, because I heard that my sister said that she couldn't allow her daughter to know about my children and to know about me because she couldn't let them know that there was a life outside of the brethren. So they live in fear. And so that is why they cannot have us in the photo book, because the next generation will be asking questions, well, who's that? Like, I don't know that person. Like, what happened to that person? And if they have this fear of them, if they know it, they might ask questions about it and they might be curious, and they can't have them having any knowledge of another life or another possibility. Imagine living with that fear. Imagine parenting from a place of that fear. Like, that's devastating.
I mean, they say, it's just simply the family's choice whether they put the photo in or not. But who publishes the Brethren photo books? UBT. They publish them to make fat profits. Literally probably well over $1 million for every edition they publish, which profits supposedly go towards reducing the school fees, which keep going up nonetheless. I mean, can you imagine submitting a photo to UBT for the photo album that included your out of fellowship children in it? Are they seriously suggesting they would just put it in without comment? I mean, just try it out, see what happens. It's nothing to do with family choice.
Yeah, I do know that Mum, when me and my brother left, she tried resisting for a long time, and it was quite a fight.
Yeah.
But yeah, I ultimately we ended up being cold.
Yeah, I mean, the UBT is not going to publish the name or picture of someone who's been withdrawn from.
No.
Okay, this is another email from an insider. It's called Eloise Holder. And this again is a very recent one, came in on Monday. Eloise, you're doing yourself and us a huge disservice by speaking up on the PBCC podcast. A modest upbringing, yes, and you are right at the bottom of the totem pole too. I can say that because you share my blood. You know you weren't treated well, and now you're standing up for the very people who kept you in that place and who still keep you there. A gilded cage is still a cage. No matter how much you tell yourself that this is exactly what you want and that you're living it on your own terms, you're being held back in ways you haven't even begun to imagine. You speak of being goal-driven. So I dare you, Eloise, to set yourself a goal that lies outside what the brethren allow. See if you can achieve it without being met with the most underhanded, self-image undermining tactics designed to make you believe that you're the problem, that it's moral, that you're fundamentally wrong even for wanting it. Anyone from Australia will recognise the irony of a Grimshaw talking to a butcher about business success and the brethren community. Having said all that, I'm genuinely happy for you, Eloise. Hold on to your happiness. I truly hope you never reach that breaking point so many of us have, hitting middle age and realising that what we thought was the right thing to do was really the absence of choice. Choices we didn't even know we had the right to make. And most of all, I hope you never have to watch your children face the same stigmas that you did. It's a heartbreaking thing to see your old wounds resurface through the people you love most.
Oh, such a good letter.
Yeah, and so it's so sad too. But I just wanted to say, like, this is not what we don't want to be doing is attacking Eloise. Like
No.
I'm genuinely happy for her that she's been able to do this. Like it's the fact that they're parading her out to the public as if it's the norm and the as if it's normal and totally acceptable in there. And I would challenge other members and other girls in there. I mean, they're saying they're parading Eloise for pushing and doing this. Go ahead, girls. Like, take this on.
Absolutely.
Like they're saying they're encouraging it, and this is the acceptable thing now. I would encourage the girls in there. Go do what you want to do.
And
Go
challenge what that means. Challenge what they are going to allow. Right?
Oh,
I think the
100%.
biggest thing with these podcasts that everybody inside there can be doing with them is use it as opportunity to mold and change what needs to be changed in there. Because now they are literally publicly saying this stuff. Hold them accountable. Hold them accountable and change your lives to fit what they're saying is acceptable.
Yeah, Eloise actually in her podcast, she actually challenged the girls
She did,
to
yeah.
to set goals and to be driven. I dare them to, like, good on them. Like, go out there, prove it.
I mean, the thing that strikes me about the business model here is that doing that kind of office secretarial EA role is basically the only career opportunity open to girls in there. So what they're not saying, the kind of elephant in the room is, well, I mean, for a sister in the brethren who might have had an ambition to run a business, this is pretty much the only kind of business they could possibly have run. Because that EA role, that sort of submissive role, being the kind of pretty assistant to the big boss, is basically all you're allowed to do.
Yes, and talk about also the fact that it was just timely, the fact that they had suddenly opened up access to the internet, which so many of us were not given that opportunity. For years and years and years, we were restricted from using the internet because it was a pipeline of filth. And now her business is only functional because of the internet and the fact that she has access to it. So it was a timely thing that, yes, and then talk about COVID and how it was convenient for her to have this business model that served people such as UBT and these big, businesses that served them well at the time. And then she talks about, I feel sorry for her because she doesn't even realize, she's kind of tone deaf when she's talking about equality, in the sense that she's talking about how many of her employees are female versus male, and she's saying, I can't remember the exact figures, but like 95% of them were females, and there was 2 males. There's 75 or 85 employees, and 2 of them are male, and she thinks that's proving equality. What it's proving is that the women are the only ones that do that work, because that's the only work they're allowed to do. It's crazy. Like they are so tone deaf in their messaging that they're talking to the outside world and they're thinking that that's equality. Like no, that's not equality.
There's some comments in here that I got off of social media once her thing went in, just so that we can get a idea of what was going on behind the scenes.
And I think we just have to be clear here that nobody is attacking her for having this business. What most people are upset about is the fact that they're parading it.
Yes, and that she had to fight tooth and nail to get going what she wanted to get going, right? It wasn't supported at the beginning. So here's one of the comments. Stand by for the shit to hit the fan when they take her business away under the promise that she'll be a board member on one of their fake charity setups. There is no way they can substantiate this narrative and still be able to control what happens next. Just like the Muppets said in their podcast, There is no way their sisters would come on the podcast with them because they would take over. Let's actually hear from the rest of Bruce's family if you want to say anything about what females can and cannot do. We all know that everyone in there is all stirred up, so much that they are now reading and commenting on posts here every day. You can try, but you can't hide, and you won't understand why until you've gotten free. And even then, it'll be a few years until you understand why you can't hide. Why not also let the public comment on your videos and podcasts? That's because there's too many questions that you have no answer for, and the same reason you won't sit down and do a podcast with ex-members. At the moment, we have an in podcast that won't even allow public comment, and we have an out podcast that lets everyone, even Gareth Hales's and his brothers, comment anonymously. I remain anonymous for legal reasons that would seriously affect more than my own life. And then another comment. She said at the end, women can choose their careers. That sounds to me like they can now become nurses, lawyers, doctors, police officers, firefighters, can join the defense forces, etc. I would like to see a not so exclusive podcast on that career topic. And like we said before, this is what I challenge them to do. If it lights your fire and be like, I want to become a lawyer. I really want to become a lawyer. You got permission to do it now. Go do it.
Yeah.
The thing that really strikes me about this is on our podcast about the RRT, we took a look at the RRT team leaders all around the globe, and there's about 40 of them for each region around the globe. All the RRT team leaders, they're all men. Now, of course, that's absolutely zero surprise to insiders because they're all conditioned to believe that only men can possibly serve in a position as a trustee or a team leader. But isn't that shocking that this charity, this public-facing charity, every single one of its team leaders, every single one of its trustees, they're men? And now let's look at Brethren meeting room trusts. Every locality, every congregation around the world, all 300 of them, have probably on average 2 or 3 meeting room trusts. And each of those has, at least 3 trustees. Guess what? That's thousands of trustees all around the world whose job is to look after the church property. But guess what the qualifying factor is to be one of those trustees? You have to have a penis. Apparently this is essential for the purposes of church administration. You literally can't do it without that vital organ. What is it that the church trustees do that requires this? Why is it that every single one of those thousands and thousands of church trustees, One School Global trustees, RRT administrators, why do they all have to be men?
But then they get offended when we sit there and call them out that they treat women as second-class citizens. Well, if you want to sit there and talk equality and that your women are not beneath you, then show us. Yeah. I have an insider I'm talking to right now that probably would love to be in a position like that. So if you want any resumes, I'm sure I can get them from my email and be like, I guarantee you, if you opened up those positions for females, you would have females come on board.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the GAP panel, they're all men as well. And the sad thing is that they're no more qualified than any of the women. They might have done their little, fake UBT business courses, but they're actually no more qualified than any of the women. So why the disparity? Like, where's the equality?
And what about all the UBT business seminars? Can you imagine a woman getting up on the stage and addressing all those delegates? Can you imagine a Vision Foundation fundraising presentation where a woman gets up and actually speaks for the community? It's the most deeply misogynistic culture on the planet, probably outside of Afghanistan. Well, I don't know. Maybe Afghanistan is actually a little better. I mean, in Afghanistan, they will actually allow people to go to university, which, of course, the Brethren don't. So why not just be honest about it? Why not just honestly say you believe, based on your interpretation of the Bible, that women should not hold administrative positions over a man? Because that's what you believe and practice. Why not just be honest about it instead of putting out these fake, lying, deceptive podcasts where you're so ashamed of what you really believe that you have to construct this kind of fake reality, these alternative facts, to pretend you're one thing while in fact you're something different?
Well, they can't, because then they would risk their charitable status, because that's not acceptable in the broader community and the world at large. So they can't be honest.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another comment from social media. Are there any other known cases of married women being able to run their own business? I know a few unmarried women who are allowed to do women's business, like sewing or selling craft supplies, but any other married woman? I'd love to know. Are there women doing other businesses in other areas of work, or are they only allowed to do this kind of office lady role business? And is it any coincidence that what this business offers very nicely serves the global network of brethren businesses? Is this lovely lady the actual CEO? Is she a shareholder, not just an Owen holder? Couldn't help myself. Is she a legitimate legal director, trustee, etc.? Love to know. Kudos to her if she is. Why does her husband work there too? Is that because he wants to and likes it, or because the business needs some male headship or spiritual/masculine leadership? Genuine questions here, would love to understand. Why are there no other male employees? Don't PBCC men want well-paid administration or telemarketing roles to work from home? Why don't they want them, if that's the case? On that note, are PBCC men allowed to be stay-at-home dads while their wives work? On another note, what would happen if brethren men or women took roles for non-brethren employees these days? Is this a sin worthy of being excommunicated, or do you think it might fly now? If it's all good to work for non-brethren, then more doors might open for women to work from home, work online, etc. Could be quite good in terms of getting some more freedom from the ecosystem.
That was a good one.
A lot of good questions in there.
Yeah.
I'm assuming we'll probably never get honest answers.
No.
One can only hope.
So this is another comment on the Eloise post. The title of the podcast is itself misleading. It should be woman, not women. Choices. What choices? Choices to pursue a career? A career to anyone on the outside watching this would normally involve tertiary studies. Choice to remain single, get married, have children, not have children. Maybe Eloise has been through the same mind control program as Lloyd. That's an interesting one. The next one is the guest on the latest podcast. Can't wait to see the 20,000 other females that don't own businesses being invited on to meet Lloyd. I mean, as Eloise says, the older brethren women just never set goals. I'm sure that will go down well. I know, oh my gosh, like I read that and just was like, well, I heard her say that and I was just like, wow, that is so offensive.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even have words for that. Like, wow. It's such a backhanded slap in the face for women that weren't given the same opportunities that she's been given. Like, wow. And then another one. I've been biting my tongue as someone who has met this team. They are treated very poorly. They are brought in to companies as an emergency and temporary substitute for when a worldly employee quits unexpectedly, or they need to find a more submissive worldly for the role. They are thrown into an absolute mess of a situation with no help or communication from the directors, and then they get dumped when a new worldly is available. I am proud of her as a woman in a shitty situation making something happen, but I doubt she goes to sleep at night and is proud of her company and what it's actually for, or how her team is treated by these companies. I can only imagine, oh gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's a couple more comments. Just realized this article is a little embodiment of gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss. That was on the article on Eloise. And someone else says, LOL, I know Eloise. She only works with P businesses. Silver spoon syndrome. And then here's another one. Eloise is my first cousin. We attended one school, Mount Gambier campus, for a few years together. There were a total of 16 enrolled at the school whilst I was there. Her version of events in this article are polar opposites to the truth. I remember her running away from one school in a tantrum on one occasion. We grew up with a persecuted family name. Glad to see her doing well, but there's no need to blatantly lie. Doesn't seem very Christian.
Okay, we're going back to some insider emails now. So this one is headed PBCC BS. Dear Cheryl, I'm writing to you as one voice but carrying the weight of many. We are the silent ones on the inside, the ones living under travel bans, break exhaustion, forced labour, and chains disguised as care. We're the ones who lie awake at night wondering if freedom is even possible. Your podcast with the insider's letters was a lifeline. It was the first time many of us felt heard. We only wish we could all speak to one another openly, but until that day comes, our voices will keep coming to you. There are moments when we try and convince ourselves that maybe Bruce just doesn't understand how bad things have become. But that illusion is shattered the second we watch the PBCC's canned, polished podcasts. The boldness of the lies is staggering. We've been explicitly told it's acceptable to lie to protect the testimony, and that they need to figure out who is with us and who is against us. That's straight out of Aberdeen, straight out of the era that supposedly purified the church. Maybe Bruce really is the last leader, and sincerely one can only hope. I know the weight you carry trying to expose this. I'm one of the people who reads every comment on social media, and I can tell you right now, the insiders trolling you are not random members, they're at the top. The doubt is spreading through every age group not held tightly in the Hales' pocket. Even the older generation, those who lived through Symington and early Hales, are whispering that something is very wrong. The podcasts released by the PBCC leadership have detonated in their own hands. They've shown the world exactly what we've been living with: lies. The truth is, we don't know where to turn. Leaving is not simple. It's not a door you walk through easily. That's why your podcast matters so much. And Bruce, yes, you or your sons or Lloyd Grimshaw will read this. Let me be absolutely clear. You're harming people immensely. There is so much blood on your hands. Please stop the lies. In the last few months alone, I've spoken with more struggling insiders than ever before. And it's not because they're not listening to the great men. It's because you are publicly lying about us. You are lying about our lives, our struggles, our families, our reality. And you are gaslighting an entire global community into believing nothing is wrong and that we have had some sort of freedom that you all obviously were having. 99% of us never had what you were claiming. Where are the interviews with the ones barely surviving financially? Where are the voices of women who were told they can never become more? Where are the testimonies of the bullied children at one school global who cry themselves to sleep? Where are the saints who were sexually abused and silenced? Where are the men and women who sit in back rows with no rank in your circles and no voice? Where are the ordinary brethren, not the hand-picked PR puppets? Your silence on these people speaks louder than your stage interviews ever could. You claim to be testing the saints. Well, congratulations, it's working. We see everything now. Every leader should be held accountable. Every MOG carries a share of the blame for what this has become. Every one of them has added another turn to the wheel that is now crushing the people trapped inside, because here is the truth you won't show the world. Inside, people are drowning. Some are suicidal. Body shaming is rampant. Alcohol abuse is everywhere. Hard drugs are circulating. Sexual abuse and sexual touching are starting younger and younger. People are numbing themselves with anything they can get their hands on, and as long as you can cover it up, you don't care. There is no justice when the criminals are still running the church. So what do? We wait, we survive, and we watch as those who built this empire slowly dig their own grave. There is no pastoral care. There never was. The system was engineered to crush, not care, and every MOG helped create this monster. This cult needs to be exposed for what it really is. It needs to be stripped down to its bones. It needs to fall to its knees and be demolished. Only then will many of us finally have a way out. Every single one of you that support this hostile environment will be held accountable. Because here's the truth, Bruce. You're not a shepherd. You're not a pastor. You're not a leader. You're a man so intoxicated by power, control and obedience that you can no longer tell the difference between guidance and tyranny. And history has a very clear warning for men like you. Hitler also built an empire of fear and obedience. It looked unshakable until the truth brought the whole thing to its knees. And that is exactly what's coming.
Wow.
That's a powerful email.
Yeah.
I just it just makes my body shake. I have chills from head to toe right now.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's coming from someone inside. For someone inside to have that clarity of vision. I mean, it's easy for us who've been on the outside for 5-10 years to see how rotten the whole thing is. But to have that clarity of vision from inside, that's impressive. And it's kind of the death knell. If the insiders can see it that clearly, it can't survive.
But I think what really brought this type of truth out to the people that I've spoke to inside there, they all say this, right? It's those podcasts, the articles that they're doing, that truly is what any scales that have been left on the eyes of the people in there are falling, not because of our podcasts. Yeah. Our podcasts help them feel heard, but what really is showing them what's really happening inside there, it's what they're doing.
It's their podcast.
It's their podcast.
Yeah, because that is true gaslighting, and it's psychologically abusive because it's so damaging when your lived reality is denied. And like he says, like the insiders are waking up and because it's just brutal for them, their whole existence is being denied. And then that is so psychologically abusive. And not only to insiders, but it's so psychologically abusive to ex-members that have had their life catastrophically impacted by these rules that are now claimed to be not rules at all.
No, like they don't have any rules.
That is awful. That is, I don't even have words.
Yeah. And I really like how this insider talks about how every man of God carries a share of the blame, right? Because it is true. Nobody is exempt. Nobody is exempt because every single one of them was a building block to what we have right now. Yeah. This monster wasn't created just from Bruce Hales. It came from every single leader that has been has built a staircase up to what we're standing on today.
Yeah. And I mean, just imagine, insiders must be thinking what's going to come next. Because, Bruce is, he's either, in a year's time, he'll either be dead or brain dead. And look at what's coming next, like the 4 Halesmen of the apocalypse. Look at that collection of pot-bellied, whiskey-soaked mafiosos sitting there. Which one of them is going to lead the brethren, into the next decades ahead? What a horrific choice.
Terrifying thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in one of the podcasts, they talk about the one that they're talking about the women and how the women aren't second-class citizens and the women have lots of opportunities. They love to get together and they love to have chats.
Gentlemen, thanks again for joining me. Some of the journalists have said that women in the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church are treated as second-class citizens. What's your response to that, Gareth?
Yeah, well, Lloyd, I believe women are highly regarded, highly respected in our church. They lead very happy, active, fulfilling lives. They have a total say on whether they work full-time or part-time or just be stay-at-home mums. So they have total freedom of choice. Like all women, when they get together, the life of the party. They'd like to have a laugh and a chat and a bit of a joke. We certainly enjoy their company. Like all women, they have their own social network groups, so they catch up for coffee, just a talk or a group chat. If I was to describe the women in our church, I'd say they're happy, they're energetic, they're creative, they're fun, they're out-of-the-box thinkers. They're really like the backbone of the church.
I personally think it's awful what the journalists say about our women, and hopefully given the opportunity to speak up, they will. But you touched on the matter of choice. I think that is a true and fair word of the women in our church. They have a choice. They can choose to work, they can choose not to work.
This is what you see on your screen here is a group chat that was created for people that had quit drinking and how to cook without alcohol. It was a group chat that was just giving all the women support in there for having, it's called Courage to Change. So it was people who had become that they weren't drinking anymore. And this was shut down. And so I just wanted to show you screenshots of that. It was an actual chat group that had many people in it, and it was shut down. And it says, "Good day, everyone. We've had word from Australia about this group chat. Message from Australia. To be clear, we are not unsympathetic with these difficult situations, but this is not the way to handle it by group chat, as this has the potential to become a fellowship within a fellowship. Each local place needs to provide the support needed. So we will be closing down this chat today, but wanted to give everyone the opportunity to read the message." And there's more chat here. It says, "Thanks for all the support, everyone, over the years." So again, number one, I want to point out, this came from Australia, but they're all autonomous, right? These, every group, every locality is autonomous. So we got to remember they did say that, and that they allow these people to have these group chats. So again, we just want to give you the facts on the lies that they're saying inside these podcasts, where women are not allowed to support each other. And when they talk about a fellowship within a fellowship, that's not allowed. You can't have friendship this deep inside their PBC fellowship that they're in.
Yeah, and that first sentence, we've had word from Australia. We all know when we're in there that means there's word from the top, and that is Bruce Hales. Yeah. Or the Hales dynasty, like let's be honest, like the controllers, the puppet masters.
Yeah. They have all these weird euphemisms because you're not supposed to talk about Bruce Hales by name where he makes an instruction, because you have to protect him in case it gets quoted. So, for the rest of the world, it's Australia. Well, that means Bruce Hales. Or I suppose if you're in Australia, they'll say, "Oh, we've heard from Sydney," or from the top, or from the CEO, or, and it's just this weird "he who must not be named" kind of thing. And it's all just a kind of, in case anything leaks and it gets quoted to the press as being what Bruce has said. Well, I mean, if you're not ashamed of what you're putting out, if you actually believe in it, why are you hiding behind all these weird euphemisms? Why not just be honest and be yourself and say, "This is what we believe in. I'm saying it. I'm taking responsibility for my own words." It's just cowardice, Bruce.
I think the sad thing about this being shut down is that we know how alcohol is so rampant inside there. And here's a chat about people who don't want to drink, right? But again, I mean, I do know some of the chats that were had in here, and they receive slack for it. So this was a chat group that they were able to get support for some of the backlash that they got for having a home that did not serve alcohol in it. Right?
Yeah, and
so,
I mean, in
like,
many
what a thing
cases,
to shut down. What a thing to shut down.
Yeah. And I mean, I suspect the vast majority of the members on this group were women in the church who had alcoholic husbands and who were struggling to cope with the daily, hourly challenges that brings, and just trying to support each other. But Bruce, kind of the pattern alcoholic husband, has to come in and shut it down.
Yeah.
Well, if you just read one of those messages, it just shows you how people were ostracized for not drinking or for not providing alcohol. The last message there, it says, just before lockdown, we had one of those big chairman groups through here complete with instructions on how to give them all 5-star treatment. This included a list of suitable expensive alcohols to serve. When the list of accommodations came out, we weren't assigned anyone because apparently we couldn't care for them properly without alcohol. Long story shortish, I threw a fit. We ended up with 2 lovely couples, one of which requested a dry house after years of sobriety. Lots of good alcohol-free memories. But there you have it. Like, because they couldn't provide alcohol, they chose not to provide alcohol, they weren't allocated any visitors.
This is just staggering. And for I mean, current members are used to this, but to people who are not familiar with the PBCC, let me explain this. If a group of important, in other words, very wealthy Brethren members is traveling, around the globe, visiting different Brethren congregations, they wouldn't normally stay in hotels. They'll stay in different Brethren's houses in the congregation. And when that group comes through, instructions are issued as to what kind of alcohol you have to have in stock for these important people to drink. Because no, they're not going to just drink your regular kind of $50 a bottle Scotch whiskey. You have to have a specific selection of extremely expensive high-end alcohol in stock in your house in sufficient quantities before you're qualified to be able to have the privilege of having these important brethren stay with you. And yet they claim on the podcast that alcohol isn't an important part of their culture. And oh yes, maybe like 10, 20 years ago we used to drink a little bit more, but it's not a problem now. This is what they're saying on the podcast. And I can promise you, if they'd turned that camera around 180 degrees, there would have been a table at the other end of that podcast room laden with bottles of high-class spirits. Because those Hale boys and Lloyd Coleslaw, they can't survive more than an hour without tanking up on high-end scotch. I mean, they're like week-old babies. How long can they survive without a bottle?
And I mean, they were caught with drinks. They have water on the table. And there was actually, if you pause it at one certain area, underneath is the drinks that they were actually drinking.
That our guys could get food and drinks right to the actual scene where the fires were.
There's 2 different timelines in the PBCC. There's one that the public sees and the one that the former members actually live through, where the shunning, coercion, the intimidation, the broken families, the suicides, the destroyed relationships, the unreported crimes, the children taken away from their parents, they're not relics of the 1970s and 80s. They're current and they're happening now across Australia, across New Zealand, across the UK, across the US, in Canada. They'll try and make out their mistakes that happened in the past. No, they're currently happening every day today.
I mean, it really made me laugh. They were saying, oh yes, this bad administration might have happened 20, 30 years ago. Well, guess who was the leader 20 years ago? Bruce Hales. Guess who was the leader 30 years ago? John Hales. I mean, they really shot themselves in the foot there, didn't they?
Yeah.
They move as a unit. And here's an email that I got. Someone sent me a screenshot of this email that went out just the other day. It's from Orbit, which is their travel team.
Which is UBT, incidentally. Yeah.
Pardon?
Which is UBT. Orbit is part of UBT.
Yeah. So it says, attire at weekend fellowship meetings. Beloved brethren, in respect for the upcoming weekend fellowship meetings on the 12th to the 14th December, we would remind one another that it would be normal for brothers to wear a white shirt for the meetings Friday to Lord's Day. We have been given guidance regarding our attire at meetings in the ministry, including the letter of May 2003. We look forward to times of encouragement universally from Global Orbit Management. Now, if they say that they don't use things 20 years ago, I'm going to show you what was attached to this, which is the May 2003 letter, and remind everybody it's 2025. So this is 22 years later.
Yeah.
They're referring to ministry as well, which we know has gone on for 100 years. So
yeah.
So this is the letter that is May 2003. It's reattendance fellowship meetings, 3-day meetings, and special meetings. To the beloved brethren, there has been a wide extension of fellowship meetings and other collective arrangements for the benefit of the brethren, especially the younger generation, with a view to gaining morally and growth spiritually from an increase in ministry to strengthen the testimony and consolidate the work of God. Along with these arrangements has been a great increase in the size of groups traveling overseas and the inclusion of a greatly increased number of young people. The endeavor in these areas has been to promote increase of family conditions without preference or prejudice. It appears from confirmed reports that this increase in the brethren coming together has led to a setting on and promotion of worldliness and substandard activity, which is clearly out of accord with all the great ministries upon which the recovery has been established and maintained. Current ministry has carried forward a strong, sympathetic, and understanding appeal to younger brethren to give up the world and commit themselves unreservedly to the truth. Whilst all the great leaders have exercised a gracious and forbearing disposition to the saints, none of them has lowered the standard to accommodate worldliness in any shape or form. Certain unacceptable features based on irrefutable witness and universal report are as follows: excessive drinking, alcohol at meeting rooms and precincts, camera recording equipment at meeting rooms, worldly dress, exposed midriffs, faded jeans, t-shirts, visible words and signs, short skirts, casual dress, example, no stockings, exposed thighs, necklaces, unsuitable hairstyles, sideburns and long hair, brothers, hair tinting, attending venues of world entertainment, including restaurants, large gatherings of young people at brethren's homes and recreational places, pre-recorded music, CDs, digital equipment, mobile phones, corrupt language and talk, rearrangement of predetermined travel schedules to accommodate special friendships and substandard links. In addition to the above, there have been substantial reports of unsuitable behavior and liaisons between younger brethren, including illicit conduct, drugs, physical contact, that even the world regards as unacceptable and dangerous. It would seem that if the brethren individually and collectively do not accept the need for control and agreement to adhere to respectable standards of dress, behavior, and social activities, we have no basis to continue the present program of increased fellowship contact. Contact has been made with, and this letter has been submitted to, recognized responsible persons in every country where the saints are represented, and they are unanimous and unreserved in their support of this current stand. Brethren in every locality should declare themselves in the assembly in a conclusive matter that will leave no doubt that the regulation and control required will be respected and upheld without compromise. It is incumbent on every locality, household, and responsible individual 12 years and over to accept the regulation proposed, otherwise they render themselves liable to be excluded from consideration for inclusion in the ongoing arrangement proposed for increased fellowship contact. It should be clear to the brethren that every matter that we are insisting on has come up and has been ministered on in temple inquiry into the scriptures and is in the printed ministry available to every household. Failure to accept and submit to requisition would raise the question, do we provoke the Lord to jealousy? Are we stronger than he? 1 Corinthians 10, verse 22. The Lord has the right to make an issue at any time. And it's signed Bruce D. Hales. So again, no one has an autonomous locality, right? I mean, this shows, they even talk about the control required. And if you don't follow this, you're going to be kicked out.
There's clear coercion. There's clear coercion in there. Yeah. Clear consequence. It's do as I say, or there will be consequences.
Mm-hmm. It's also do as I say, not do as I do, because I mean, excessive drinking and alcohol at meeting rooms. I mean, that's Bruce Hales' signature.
And going to restaurants and all of that. There's.
So for them to put out their orbit thing and reiterate the 2003 letter, whilst putting out podcasts that completely contradict this.
Yeah, saying they have no rules. Oh, there aren't really any rules at all. And then literally within like a couple of weeks, they put this out, right?
But they even in the podcast, they said there is no rules and then proceeded to outline some of the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's just ridiculous. And this was also read out. This is a transcript from their care meeting.
Okay, so it goes one more letter dated the 28th of October 2025. Beloved brethren, on the 12th to the 14th of December 2025, we are holding weekend fellowship meetings for the enjoyment and prosperity of the brethren universally. Following the weekend fellowship meetings, there should be no visitors in Sydney and the surrounding interchange during the period Thursday the 18th of December through to Monday the 12th of January 2026. Any overseas travel of the brethren universally during this time is to be on the principle of urgent care and is the responsibility of each local assembly. We would encourage, there's that word encourage, we would encourage all of brethren to relook at the references that relate to the vacations and holidays in Mr. Symington's and Mr. John Hales's ministry in view of caring for one another in our immediate setting over this period. There's a list of references that will be posted. The Universal Elders.
Just to kind of interpret the particular brethrenese and brethren dialect that's being used here, what they're actually saying is that no brethren anywhere on the globe will be allowed to travel overseas over the Christmas period. This is after them bragging loudly about how wonderfully they hold families together and how family is the most important thing. It's at the heart of everything they do. Now, as we know, a lot of brethren marry internationally. So many brethren families will have parents, children, close relatives in different countries. And also because the brethren are very deeply occupied in their businesses, the Christmas period is generally the only time when they can actually take a week or 2 weeks off work to actually visit their parents, children, relatives overseas. But for no apparent reason, just arbitrarily, Bruce Hales has dictated that no brethren shall travel overseas over the Christmas period unless it's a matter of urgent care. So like, if your parent, child, relative is dying of cancer or literally needs urgent care, then you can get special permission. But no, you can't just travel to see your relatives for Christmas. You can't bring the family together for Christmas because, as happens every year, Bruce Hales arbitrarily slaps a travel ban on all the brethren for the whole of the Christmas period. But of course,
this happens all the time.
Hales family will not be limited by this ban. They will be traveling everywhere. They will visit their relatives. They'll have their drinking parties. But the rest of the brethren, for no reason at all, just because they can control, they will control, have slapped a travel ban. I mean, they say they're not a cult. Can you imagine anything more culty than slapping a travel ban, saying that none of the 55,000 members can travel overseas during the Christmas period, and doing that year on year?
And then they're referencing all these ministry, old historical ministry references that people are to look up if they have any doubt about,
Yeah.
the rules that are
to the
no
Bible.
rules.
We're not going to the Bible to look to see if this has any reference.
No.
Right?
No.
It's just to the men that have made up rules. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. These are some messages that I've received from insiders that I wanted to read out. They've done the damage already. They can't row back from going so public now. It's literally a matter of time before the entire position implodes on itself. God won't let them get away with it. I promise you that. Karma is like a boomerang. It always comes back to you. I'm as angry and hurt. It's very, very hard to swallow. There's no work of God in any of them. That's extremely clear. To lie like that is stomach churning and vile. The HSS BDH is sinking fast. It is unlikely there will be any survivors. The end will be swift but messy.
Oh, the end will be swift but messy. This is what we feel like really to our core, is that the mess from any fallout is going to be so terrible. Like
It's going to be Titanic. I mean,
yeah.
just imagine, there's going to be some kind of a split. But I mean, back Aberdeen time, when there was a split, brethren could walk away because they all had their own employers, they had their own, their own circumstances. They weren't in brethren schools. I mean, imagine a locality where it splits down the middle. Half of them are following Dean and half of them are following Charles, or half of them are following Gareth and the rest of them don't want any more to do with the Hales. But all their kids are going to the same school. Half the school trustees are on one side of the split, half are on the other. Can you imagine the mess? I mean, the social mess, the financial mess, the property ownership mess. I mean, it's going to keep most of the lawyers in Australia busy for decades just sorting out the debris from it.
Yeah, and most people back at 30 years ago would have had control of their own finances, whereas now it's all so intertwined and so controlled, and so the ties are so much stronger now.
Your job and your mortgage and everything is all tied to different brethren entities, and if it splits, it's like you've got one foot on the boat and one foot on the dock and the boat's departing. What's going to happen?
Yeah. And these are just a few messages that I was given permission to read out, but these are 3 messages that come from so many inside there. Many of them are so fearful of Jonestown's repeating itself. I don't think Bruce would. I want to give that benefit of the doubt that Bruce wouldn't go as far as that I think more likely they would just take your money and run. But, who knows? It's sad. Our hearts break over what everybody is going through inside there. I wish so badly I could just show up with buses, get you all out of there. And when you come out with your money, you come out with your family, you come out with your children, you come out with your grandchildren. But unfortunately, it's not going to happen like that.
Yeah, I think some reassurance would be like with the Jonestown thing, like the guy that orchestrated that, he was so delusional. He genuinely believed that
his own lies, right?
Yeah, he believed that they were going to a better place and all the rest. The Haleses, I don't think they even believe that. I don't think they believe their own bullshit, and they don't care enough about the people. I don't think they would go to that extreme.
Yeah.
Because, I
mean, what I would say is if there's anyone inside there who has enough dirt on the Hales and enough influence to swing a coup, rather than just let the Hales run away with all the cash, like build some support, because it would be vastly less painful if someone could actually take this organization and steer it into safer waters, rather than let the Hales just wreck it and let everyone kind of float off on the wreckage. So there's anyone there with a little sense of responsibility and the ability and the cash and the intelligence and the dirt on the Hales mafia to actually engineer some kind of internal takeover, go for it.
That's the only thing that's going to save it, really. Yeah. That's the only way that this can be redeemed or saved, because otherwise, like the structure of it is built so in a way that people that even though there's hundreds of people that are struggling at the moment, have their eyes open and they don't want to be in there, they can't even come together because the risk of somebody ousting them is so high, and the consequences of being ousted are so terrifying that they can't even group together. And that's the problem, you can't even network, even though you might be sitting alongside, you might be sitting in the meeting room in their church, sitting alongside several people that are all thinking the same thing. You cannot speak to them about it, and you would never know, because the risk of being ousted, of one person changing their mind at the 11th hour and dobbing you in, is so great that you can't even, it's structured in the most horrific way.
Yeah, it's the Emperor's new clothes thing. I mean, everyone can see that the Emperor has no clothes, but no one dares say so because the consequences of saying so are too unimaginable. I mean, if you knew that if you put your hand up and say, well, actually, Bruce is just an alcoholic mafioso crook, if you thought you could do that and everyone else would stand up and agree with you, you'd dare to do it. But you just don't know what other people are thinking. You don't know if anyone else has actually seen through it.
Although people are starting to talk in there. Like since these last few podcasts that have come out, people are really starting to see through it. People are starting to talk. People are starting to talk even at the breaks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is, if people, I think people are starting to get a little bit more courageous with just testing waters and what people say about these podcasts that are being put out, right?
Yeah,
and very quickly they can find.
They're saying something just a little controversial and seeing what the reaction is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So here's a couple more comments on social media that have come as a result of the articles and the podcasts. All propaganda. The second one that I've watched, the other one was with the Hales sons, and what a load of horse shit. Just a pack of lies, telling some tiny truths to hide the real truth. I guess if Hamas can do it, why not the EB? Propaganda. And then the next one goes, having just listened to the conversation, I couldn't help but notice the distinct similarities between the jargon used and the blatant denials by the Hales brothers and what you hear from politicians, particularly Liberal Party Australia politicians. Interesting, I think, considering the tens of millions of dollars donated by the PBCC to the Liberal politicians since the Howard era. And just for the shits and giggles, doesn't someone from the Hales family sitting in an interview wearing a Hugo Boss shirt speak absolute volumes? Richard, maybe you can expand on that reference to the Hugo Boss shirt.
Yeah, Hugo Boss was a German designer who designed the uniforms for the Nazi Party.
Yeah. So interesting that Dean quotes 2 Timothy 2 verse 22 and didn't mention verse 19, which is a verse that they have repeated parrot fashion for decades. Yet the firm foundation of God stands, having this seal: the Lord knows those that are his, and let everyone who names the name of the Lord withdraw from iniquity. And then, does this all feel very similar to the news articles and interviews JT Jr. did after Aberdeen? Question mark. Tone deaf damage control.
And that's what's being said in there, right? That this is, I mean, we heard from that other email that it's a test, right? They're also testing to see who's with them and who's not with them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's some more comments again. The fact they feel they need to do this PR in the first place actually highlights how cloistered and sectarian they are. No other genuine Bible-following church has a need to do any of this PR because everything they do is open anyway. This only serves to highlight what a sectarian cult they are. And there's another one. Their wealth is not why people attack them. It's how they treat non-brethren, especially ones they employ. They are demeaning and ruthless. That sort of reputation gets around and people start to wonder how they will treat customers as well. People have options and then they go elsewhere. And then another one. How can they attend the Lord's Supper after lying publicly? Why is the leader such an angry man? If he's supposed to be Christ-like, Jesus didn't go about angry calling people names and telling them that they're going to hell. We've all heard BDH's message to Scott Hales. I have no doubt God is angry with his carry-on. Very privileged to have left as a family. Not confined to a room? How come I spent 3 months in my room with my mother leaving my food outside the door? And so that's in response to in the podcast, they talk about that they've never confined anybody to a room, which, I mean, everybody who has been shut up or you're in trouble know that yes, that happens. That's happened a ton. I mean, we have right now someone who's confined into a separate vehicle outside on their parents' outside their parents' house, who wants to come back, is not being allowed to come back yet. We know that this is just absolute lies upon lies.
Normally people get many chances, but finally if it comes to the point where they just want to continue it, then we confine them. It doesn't mean we confine them to a room. It just means they don't actually go out to the meetings. But there's a lot of support, a lot of care, a lot of help, and a lot of support people come around to try to help them. Probably 99% of people come from a confined or shut up position back into the church or the fellowship. And then, the 1% that decide they don't want our way of life, then they leave. But we don't shut them out. We don't ignore them.
So these are more social media comments following the Hales Boys podcast. I've never had to listen to such lies. I was totally cut off just because I said a leader had lied to me. I was thrown out 9 p.m. at night. Could never speak to my family or friends I grew up with in a small town. I have over 100 nephews and nieces. I don't know any of them or their children. They changed my mother's will and stole the money she wanted me to have. You're a lying bunch of bastards, and hell awaits your arrival. And another one. We don't cut them off? What a load of bollocks. They, the cult, locked my teenage daughters in a room so they couldn't escape back to us who had left. Oh, it was a mistake, was it? And another one. Never heard so much BS in all my 65 years on planet Earth. This cult has destroyed so many lives and families. They did their very best to do the same to our family. And they don't cut us off? Really? I have lots of texts saying otherwise. The lies are insane.
Yeah, and I want to just respond to this, that my husband has been going back and forth to Maple Creek to do with a court case that was going on there. And in that, retrieved a confession from Alan Drever that was recorded and on video. And my brother had promised that he was going to help get me justice and help fight for me. And my husband was just there yesterday and had the door shut in his face, saying that they weren't free to talk to him. Here's the audio to that.
Hey Trevor, how you doing?
Good. I'm not free to talk.
Why?
I'm not.
So you, does God allow you to lie?
No, I'm not. I'm just not free to talk, Curtis. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll go to Tim's.
Okay, you go talk to Tim. Thank you.
Yeah. Disappoint me, Trevor. You can't even fight for your sister when you told me you would. Liar.
He then went to my other brother's house to see if he could have a conversation with him. He had already been to 2 previous brethren places prior to this with no answers and very vague information. He had not been met with any care and compassion at this point. Going to my other brother's home yielded the same result. Here's the audio he got from my second brother's house.
Okay, November 12th, 2025 at 4:58 p.m. Going to Kevin's house.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, and you?
Good.
Good.
Kevin home?
Yeah, he is.
Can I talk to him?
Actually, Curtis, we don't really want to talk today.
How come?
Because we don't. Thank you, though.
So these are members of my family and of the PBCC handing out care and compassion and extending their help the only way they know best. To hide from the issues and slam doors in their families' faces. Does this sound like what Gareth is talking about? Does this sound like welcoming and offering support when ex-members need it? Absolute hypocrisy. So yes, they do cut you off. They do shut doors in your faces. Yeah.
Yeah. And confinement isn't confinement is basically what they're saying. They explain that confinement doesn't mean being shut in a room. It simply means being barred from meetings. But don't worry, because 99% of them come back. When any group claims When any group claims that almost everyone subject to punishment later chooses to return, you should immediately ask the question, what happens to the people who don't? Like in the PBCC, confinement is step one in a psychological pressure campaign. Like so effective that the victims often internalize the guilt for things they didn't even do, apologize for sins they didn't even commit, and beg for readmission just to stop the social starvation. Like 99% come back. It's not a success rate. It should be a warning sign.
I mean, let me go through what happened to me. And it was around 2011. I was inside the Brethren in Regina in Canada. And I was told that if I made a confession that I wouldn't be shut up or confined. So I did. I was told to write out everything I wanted to clear. So I wrote it all out. It gets sent off to Bruce Hales in Australia. And then weeks later, I get a random phone call from some random brother in Australia who had apparently been handed my case to deal with. And I mean, this is very private, confidential stuff. This is all supposed to be completely confidential. And I get this phone call from some random person I'd never heard of to discuss it. And then a few weeks later, suddenly I'm confined. And yes, I was confined to a room. I was still allowed to live at home, but I was to have no social interaction with my wife and my 5 young children. Anyway, so that went on. You know, I was sleeping on the couch. I had to leave the room when they were in the room. No talking to them. None of this. And that went on for a week or two. And then a message comes through from Australia, aka Bruce Hales or his minions, saying, oh, Richard's having too much interaction with his family. He needs to leave the family home. So then I moved out to my business premises, and I was sleeping on like a pile of boxes in the back of my business premises. But we had a mail order business, so every day there were parcels to go to FedEx. And I didn't have a driving license at the time. So I would leave the parcels for FedEx in the reception area, and my wife would pick them up and take them to the FedEx depot. And then the next thing is the local brethren decide, oh no, that's too much interaction. His wife shouldn't be going to the business premises if he's there. Never mind, I didn't see her. I just left the parcels for her to pick up. So the next thing was, no, you'll have to take, if she can't go to the business premises, you'll have to take the parcels to the FedEx depot yourself. So then I had to literally either walk or get a taxi to get my parcels to the FedEx depot, because my wife wasn't even allowed to pass by the business premises where I was living. And then after a few weeks of this, I actually got suicidal. I actually contacted the priest and said, look, I need psychological help. I need a psychiatrist. I'm going out of my mind with this pressure. So they decide to move me into the house, into the basement of a house belonging to one of the so-called priests of the locality. So I move into this guy's basement. Okay. And then they say, well, you can't use the same door as us, so you'll have to come in and out of the back door, and we're going to go in and out of the front door because we can't share the same door with someone who's under discipline. Okay? And the other thing they had to do is, because this priest, like he's an older guy and his wife, because I was living in their house, they couldn't go straight from their house to church, so they had to go from their house to another brethren's house, step in the door, and then go to church, because I had made their house unclean by being there.
Yeah, we've heard that before in Anne Hamilton's case as well.
Yeah,
Where her
and the same happened to my family when I was actually confined but living at home. When my family went to church, they had to go to other brethren's house, walk inside and walk out the door, because my presence in the house rendered them too unclean and dirty to go to church.
Yeah.
Now, so all the BS they say about, oh, confining is, yeah, no, they're not confined to their room. It just means they are not allowed to attend church. It's actually a whole process of psychological manipulation designed, and I mean, in their writings, they admit it's designed to break someone's spirit and break down their personality and render them completely helpless and obedient to the priest. That's what it's designed to do. Having lived in this guy's basement for a few weeks, I had a complete breakdown, and I was told to go to the Mayo Clinic and see a specific psychologist who was basically contracted to the Brethren, and his recommendation is that I should have electric shock therapy, which is where they basically they basically put electrodes across your head and put so much electricity through your head that you go into spasms and you black out, and that's supposed to help with very severe depression. I wasn't suffering from depression. I was being manipulated and persecuted into a state of depression by their actions, by their process of confining people. That's what it's really about.
Yeah, so according to the Hales brothers, the families can stay in touch if they wish, and ex-members can always reach out for support.
Yes.
This is the PBC's favourite line: "Shunning is not enforced." And it's funny. It's just something that everyone happens to do. Yeah. It's the same logic as saying we don't force our members to do X, but if you don't do X, you'll lose your family, your job, your home, and your entire support network. Like,
it's the consequences, isn't it? Yeah,
exactly.
You've always got the choice of going and speaking to your out of fellowship family member, but then you'll find you're out of fellowship too.
Yeah, it's not optional. It's obedience dressed in language of choice. That's what it is. And yes, that whole thing is a psychological pressure campaign so that you effectively come back begging to be readmitted into the family because you're so desperate, you've been so psychologically impacted, you've lost your whole mind. Yeah. It's dreadful. Absolutely.
You know what? The most painful thing about it is being, I mean, particularly I had a young family, and the most terrible thing is being that entire contact with your family is completely withdrawn, and you literally will confess to things you never did just to get back to your family.
Oh, I mean, entirely.
Go on. Yeah.
It's and the parental alienation is just absolutely unforgivable. The things that they will tell the children as to why they can't have to do with their dad, and why they can't have speak to their dad, and why their dad has to be treated so absolutely appallingly it's illegal parental alienation, and they get away with it. Yeah. And then they claim charitable status.
Yeah, it's the most extreme form of coercive control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what's really sad in all of this is that how they treat people, those people that they do shun and shut up and excommunicate are usually people that they don't give a shit about, or you know what I mean? Like right in your case, Richard. But yet they can receive an audio of Alan Drever confessing what he confessed and not do a thing about it. Yeah. Sit there, break bread with him.
If they dealt with him, it would damage the reputation of the church, because it's such a public case. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing that I had an issue with watching those podcasts is how they talk about how they acknowledge the mistakes that they have done, right? And what do you do to investigate it? Well, they look into it and they follow up with authorities if it needs to be. Are you kidding me? No, I'm going to do a podcast on all of this. I just need to recover a little bit from what's gone on recently. So I'm just going to give a little bit of tidbits here. But literally listening to the audio that my husband got, it was horrific what Ellen was agreeing to. And everybody's got it. I sent it to Bruce Hales just recently. It went to Bruce Hales. It went to all of the brothers. It went to a ton of people all over the world with all of this, and that this needs to be taken care of. If you are going to sit on a podcast and say that you investigate and look into things, well, I gave you something a couple nights ago to investigate and look into. If you weren't privy to it, you're privy to it now. And I expect Alan Drever to be shut up, taken to an institution or to a police station. In my mind, as the child that was completely subject to his horrific freaking mental illness, I want him in a mental institution. I need him in an institution. He needs to be in an institution that for the little girl inside me needs to know that he's somewhere that maybe he could get help. And if you don't want to do that, then throw him into jail. Throw the key away. Put him in jail and throw the key away. But I plead with you that if you're going to go public and say what you're going to say on a podcast, saying that you investigate these things, then you need to show me you're investigating these things, because it hasn't done. Tim Bond, you haven't done anything in this. And this is your uncle. You know what he has done. You know what he's done to your family. You know what he's done to his own children. You know this shit. Do something about it, and don't make my parents break bread with him every Sunday. That is cruel. Absolutely and utterly cruel to make my family break bread with him every Sunday.
Yeah, you've put them in a bind. You've put them in a bind, Cheryl, because if they actually now take action, they've stood their ground for so long on this that if they now take action, it gives you credibility, and if they give you credibility, it's going to be a bit dangerous for them. Yeah. So you've put them in a bit of a bind, and I hope that they will do something of it finally, but I fear that they won't, because I know that there's I fear, because I know there's a child pedophile here in Perth currently, a known pedophile, where people inside and people outside know about him. There's victims left, right and centre, and nothing's been done. Nothing.
But I mean, the hypocrisy of it is that they have this amazing standard of purity where, as we were saying, if someone in your house is confined, you're rendered unclean by that fact, and you have to go to someone else's house before you go to church. You know, they're so pure, they're so sensitive, and at the same time, all of you insiders are breaking bread with pedophiles.
Do you think that they just
your
don't?
whole philosophy is that the fellowship is one, it's indivisible, it's universal. Everyone in there is breaking bread with everyone else. Well, you're breaking bread with Alan Drever. When you go to church on Sunday, whether you're actually in Maple Creek or anywhere you are in the world, when you eat the bread and drink the wine, you're breaking bread with these most vile pedophiles who torture young children as young as 3 years old. And it's not dealt with because it might damage the reputation of the church.
I really, I question myself in the sense that, do you think that they just don't understand
Cheryl, no, they
atrocity
understand.
of what
they understand, because I've been told by several sources that the one here in Perth, his wife would sleep in the living room to prevent him from getting to her own children, and that's a known fact.
Like, I just don't know why they don't clean this up. I just don't know why they don't clean this up.
He now has grandchildren.
So sad. It's so sad. Anyhow, I will do another podcast where I have time to put all the audio and everything together, and I will share my story on Get a Life. I know I haven't done it, and I know many people have asked for it. It's a lot to sit and unpack, and I need to make sure that I'm a little bit more emotionally regulated than I am right now. But it will come. So here's some more comments. These people have lost their moral compass and have no conscience. They know they are telling blatant lies. They show absolutely no empathy, no compassion, and no charity to those that they have harmed so detrimentally over many years. I can say this because I have lived this firsthand along with my family. It's heartbreaking to see how many lives have been affected. And someone says, timestamp of 2 minutes and 50 seconds. What happens when one leaves? Gareth. It just means they don't come to our church. The family don't shut them off or look down on them, etc. But we hold separation, and they don't eat or drink or socialize with them. No eat, drink, or socialize? Well, that sure sounds like shutting them off to me. A statement that says one thing that says the opposite in the same sentence. And another comment, what utter rubbish. I can vouch for the fact that these guys are lying through their teeth.
The fact that Lloyd, at the beginning of each of the conversations with Gareth, Dean, Greg, and Charles, he makes the point that he is talking with the 4 sons of Bruce Hales, who is the most senior leader in the Brethren. I think this really is proof that everything is basically controlled by Bruce Hales. When are they going to include Bruce Hales himself? When is Bruce Hales going to have a conversation with the media, or maybe on Get a Life podcast?
I can answer that. Probably never, because he'll never be sober enough to even put 2 words together.
But I do say, Bruce, and to any of the sons, I will not be controversial if you come on here. Like, we just want real conversations. Help us understand the decisions you make. Help me understand why you allow a pedophile to break bread in Maple Creek every Sunday after you've received the information that you've received. Help me understand that.
Cheryl, do you really expect you could even have a conversation with somebody that is a habitual liar and lies through their teeth at every second sentence?
No. And I mean, the system, again, like we heard in that one email, right? The system is doing exactly what it is. It was set up to be a cult. It wasn't set up to be a mainstream Christian church that is full of care and compassion, right?
Oh, he even admitted it in his own podcast there. He said, accidentally admitted that they're not a mainstream church.
I actually have that later on. We'll talk about that later on. Yeah, I do have that on here. Yeah.
Another comment. They're all followers of George Costanza, who stated, "It's not a lie if you believe it." They believe everything they make up, alternative facts. And to those who have a moral compass, we know them as liars.
Yeah. Okay.
BDH has huge modern-day celebrity status within the PBCC. I'm sure, though, that he didn't do that himself. The ordinary punter brethren, his 50,000-odd superfans, have put him on the pedestal he stands on today. Yeah. Mind you, I think he just ran with it once he realised that in the punter's eyes, he was practically immaculate and could do anything he desired. He's also reputed to be very much like a successful politician. He says all the things that the punters need to hear, but he's not overly intelligent. I've always thought it interesting and slightly off that average people often follow these sorts of leaders. Well, it's very true. Like, he's no different to any of the other cult leaders out there.
No. Yeah. And we go on to, there's more comments. Alternative facts, Lloyd, or lies. And then go the other one, lie after lie. The church are autonomous. Oh yeah, just try doing different. One day, reporters will ask to speak to 2 of the kids down the back instead of the ones that are handpicked to speak to the media. Stand on the playground, watch the dynamics, and choose who they want to speak to from that. In my opinion, the Hales perpetrated the biggest con job ever visited on the Brethren, and in doing so brought the Christian testimony into disrepute. As the Apostle Peter charged, on your account, the name of the Lord is blasphemed among the nations. And then another comment, no control over the school, but the entire reproduction section was blocked out of our biology books.
Yeah, it's interesting, no control over the school.
Okay, so there was a recent article by the right-wing media, which was basically a little puff piece for One School Global, where they invited a reporter in to One School Global, and they had prepped a couple of the kids to give them a good picture to try and counter the negative media coverage of One School Global. So this is what it said in the article. The global collection of schools has recently come under fire from former teachers at Victorian campuses who claimed that the school's day-to-day was heavily influenced by the church. Mr. Selby, that's Mason Selby, who's one of the students, strongly denied this allegation. The church has no control over the school, the 18-year-old said. It's a setup, I guess, for us, brethren, but the church has literally no control over it, and it hasn't impacted any lessons or anything. Now, this is what Bruce Hales, this is from the index of the collected writings of Bruce Hales, or whatever they call it. This is what Bruce Hales says about the schooling. This was said in 2009 in Argentina. My philosophy about schooling is, I want to be in control, and I want to know those teachers know that we're in control, and control is critical. And if they don't respect you, I wouldn't have them near the place. They've got to respect us, our Christianity. Don't have to understand it, but they're not allowed to oppose it. They've got to respect our way of life, the way we're bringing our families up, our ethos. And that's how you keep control in the school. So now who's being honest here, Bruce Hales or Mason Selby? I mean, the sad thing to me here is that they're actually teaching their children to lie at school. They're teaching children in one school
So sad.
how to lie to protect the testimony.
And here's some more ministry. This is from October of 2015. The schooling issue. We demanded from the authorities. We got what we wanted, and we're not going to give it up. We're not going to get any division into the schooling matter. Sick of it. What JSH said was, if you want to come, it's voluntary. Once you come, it's mandatory. When we start something, we finish it. And when we take the initiative, we run it. We don't mind working with a cooperative board. We don't mind helpful suggestions, but we're not going to put up with disloyalty. That's my view of schooling, that we're in control. I know we've got to have teachers. We have to have them from outside our own community. We know that. I've got no difficulty with that, but we should be in control. Again, I'm just going to reiterate this as 2015. And here's another one from 2017. The wisdom of this world is darkness. The wisdom of this world is darkness. Noticed a remark of our beloved brother's the other day. He spoke about higher education. I always enjoyed his references to higher education, the way he could take it apart, having understood it all, but he took it apart. You might say we all need further education. Well, I'd agree with that, but what he objected to was the idea of higher education. Higher you went, possibly the lower you went. Pretty much. And then this one is from 2020 in Sydney on May 23rd. So we don't want to go in for prominence in the world. We don't want to go for. We were instructed years ago that we didn't need to get degrees, didn't have to go to university. Anything that would lead to some mark of prominence is, by definition, a liability. Then as we get older, we don't want to have any link with the world at all. Again, this was 5 years ago, and now we have these PBCC podcasts where the Hales brothers are completely telling something against what this is just all saying. This is hard on the teens though, right? And I've said this before on podcasts. This is so hard on the teens because they've got this, everything that they're being taught, and then the lies come in, and the cognitive dissonance is really hard on them. It's so hard on them. Shame on you, Bruce. Shame on you for making these kids be like this. It's just it's so cult-like. It's so ruthless. It's so uncompassionate. It's so unchristian.
Yeah.
Here's some quotes that were also on social media from Bruce.
But these are ministry quotes, right?
These are ministry quotes that Bruce Hales has said that were on social media also in regards to everything. The idea of compromising with persons under discipline, it really is a serious matter. He, JSH, said we shouldn't have any social contact whatsoever, BDH 2004. And then another one, regarding persons under assembly discipline. What you see with certain brethren, they go back to the old connections. What is needed really to get me through to anything is radical dislocation in my life. Courage is needed to cut our connections.
Cut our connections is basically what he's saying, is cut off people.
Yeah. And yet on the podcast, they were saying, oh, no, we don't cut people off at all. No. You know, the idea is laughable. And yet, you know, in their printed ministry on everyone's bookshelves that they constantly refer to, that's exactly what they're being told to do. And that's exactly what they do.
Yeah.
There's some more quotes from Bruce Hales. This first one is very recent. It's just from last year. It's a sad thing, you see. We've had persons leave this wonderful fellowship. They didn't regard it as wonderful. They didn't see the holiness of it. They never came back. Some come back, very few. Solemn matter to give up the fellowship, give up the holy fellowship, turn your back on this wonderful system of things that God has set up, established. See whether we are vitally in it, whether we really are vitally in it. Bruce Hales, 2024.
And I just want to put in a clip. I just want you to listen to what the boys are saying on their podcast about who comes back.
Probably 99% of people come from a confined or shut up position back into the church or the fellowship. And then, the 1% that decide they don't want our way of life, then they leave. But we don't shut them out. We don't ignore them.
Now, can you hear the difference, right? Here's the boys saying, almost everybody comes back, right? But yet Bruce saying some come back, very few. So what is it? Do you get like everybody that comes back, or is it just very few? You guys need to keep your story straight.
Another quote from this is from John Hales. Persons in fellowship have had to do with persons under discipline. That's frustrating God's thought in the discipline. You're working against God and you're working against the sinner.
And another one. If you leave this fellowship, having been in the presence of the light, what you're doing is going against God. Would you like to find yourself up against God? BDH 2004. I mean, this sounds like coercive manipulation and religious abuse to me. They say the church doesn't stand in the way of people leaving. And this is older ministry from JSH, which is John Hales. It's right to be. This is shocking. This is. This makes me feel quite sick.
And so I want to just, before we read this out, I just want to reiterate to the listeners and viewers and people that might not understand why we're picking some old ministry, is that instead they don't get, their main focus in day-to-day life is not about sitting down and reading the Bible. It's about reading the ministry of the great men. So they have quotes that go out a couple times a day. They're always quotes from the great men. So we're not when Gareth talks about how things in the last 20, 30 years might have been done different, he's being very hypocritical in what he's saying, because they do take into consideration what happened and what was said 20 to 30 years ago. It's pushed down the throats of the members every single day. And here's one of them.
It's right to be depressed in your closet, but don't stay that way. And don't come out into the family depressed, and don't come into the assembly depressed. There's no place for depression in here. We're not saying this to the young persons. They might be every which way, sitting here in the meeting, looking all right in their faces, quite happy, enjoying life amongst the brethren. And there might be such an explosive struggle going on inside. They feel as though they're going to burst.
Yep, that's what's happening right now.
Oh, that's just like shocking. So they're basically saying, you can be depressed, but don't come here and show us that you're depressed. Like, put on a brave face, smile and play happy families. And to be honest, that's what we're conditioned from birth to be. Like any public facing time had to be happy, shiny people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's
sweet, pray and obey, isn't it? The fundamentalist LDS, that was their mantra. Yeah. You've got to keep sweet. You've got to keep a smiley face on. Keep your internal struggles to yourself. We're not going to help you with them.
Yeah. And that's from John Hales in 1990. And now here's a quote from Bruce in 2006, which is John's son and the current man of God.
Yeah. So you don't get depressed. You don't get depressed. What's the point of wasting time being depressed? There's so much to do. So many people to look after. So many people to keep happy.
You know what I mean? And I mean, the depression, as we heard in those other emails, is coming because of the pressure that's put on them. Like, how's that for like care and compassion to your congregation, right?
And interestingly, he talks about being sympathetic with mind disorders or disordered whatever minds. It's the fact that if you question, then you have a mind disorder. So, like there's no such thing as depression, but you can have a mind disorder And we'll label you with mind disorder if you dare to question anything we say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And this was a screenshot from one of their podcasts. This is Dean wearing his Hugo Boss shirt and saying, wow, the church is evolving, maybe slower than mainstream churches, but again, here is this, as Lane Admiral would call it, a Freudian slip, where they call themselves a mainstream Christian church, but here they are admitting, but then totally admitting that they're not a mainstream Christian church. No, you're not a mainstream Christian church. You're a cult.
Well, other churches seem to have become more accepting over the years. Why hasn't the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church?
Well, the church is evolving, maybe slower than mainstream churches, but I think...
Bit of a slip of the tongue there, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like he believes in evolution as well. That's a new one.
So that's a lot of lies being told and people seeing through it. So we really, really appreciate every insider that reaches out and helps us expose this. I know so many of you write me and don't want your stuff publicized or written out. That's completely fine. You're still welcome to keep in contact with us. I always ask permission if I'm going to show something from somebody that's inside there. And to everybody who's commented on social media, thank you. That's getting your voice heard as well, and also letting them know what they're saying and how many people did not experience what they're saying on these podcasts. So again, thank you to everyone. Thank you, Cassie. Thank you, Richard. Until next time, much love to you all. Bye-bye. How can you support Get a Life podcast? You can donate internationally via PayPal at www.paypal.me/Get a Life podcast. Or you can scan the QR code on your screen that takes you to our GoFundMe. Every donation helps keep this project alive. If you are in a high-demand religious group and need help, please go to oliveleaf.network. To share your story or be a guest on the show, email info.getalife@proton.me. You can find all our Get a Life merchandise on our website at www.getalife.net. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to Get a Life, and comment.